On the morning of the 25th of April 1915, some 75,000 British and French soldiers were landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula and the Turkish mainland. They were part of the biggest seaborne assault the world had ever seen. Following the disastrous naval battle in the Dardanelles Straits, the decision had been taken to put troops ashore. It was the start of an 8.5 months campaign, one from which many thousands of these soldiers would never return. In the early hours of April the 25th, a fleet of ships laden with 75,000 Allied soldiers approached the Gallipoli Peninsula, heading for two main landing points. The Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, or ANZACs as they were known, were to be landed halfway up the peninsula, while the regular army soldiers of the crack 29th Division were to be put ashore at 6 beaches around Cape Helles. The Anzacs went in at first light, but landed further south at the wrong place, not at Gaba Tepe as had been planned, but here at Anzac Cove a mile further north. This was blamed on a combination of strong currents and navigational errors by the Navy. The troops were confronted by a confused landscape of cliffs and razorback ridges. Due to the nature of the terrain, the area was lightly defended. Realizing this, the Anzacs took off in furious pursuit of the Turks, even as more men and equipment were being rushed ashore to consolidate the beachhead. Mustafa Kemal, the Turkish commander, was sent into action in an attempt to stop the Anzacs taking the high ground of the Sarıyer Ridge and Şanlıurfa. This was the key to capturing the peninsula. Dozens of bitter fights broke out, with many men getting lost in the maze of gullies. The Anzacs' over-enthusiasm led to chaos and heavy casualties, but some of them had advanced far enough to gain a glimpse of the distant Dardanelles on the far side of the peninsula. Kemal summoned up every man he could find and threw them into action. Desperate fighting continued throughout the day, resulting in the Anzacs being kept off the Sarıyer Ridge. A great chance had been lost. Further south at Cape Helles, the British troops met with mixed fortunes. At V and W beaches, the Turks had plenty of warning. V Beach was to provide one of the most enduring images of the campaign, as the steamer River Clyde, packed with 2,000 troops, was run aground in the face of the enemy's artillery and concentrated machine gun fire. As the ship ground ashore, hatches cut into her bows were opened and the troops poured out to confront a hail of machine gun fire. It was 6:30 a.m. as the troops dashed down the specially constructed gangways. Hundreds of casualties were sustained as the men were caught in the narrow field of fire. An aircraft flying overhead reported the sea ran red with blood 50 yards out from the shore. This unique photograph was taken from the River Clyde soon after the landing. It shows soldiers in the very thrall of battle. Many lie dead or wounded, unable to move, while units of the Munster, Dublin and Hampshire regiments can be seen taking shelter from the concentrated Turkish machine gun fire. 4 of their number are crawling towards the enemy barbed wire in an attempt to get off the beach. Many more remain trapped on the shoreline. These men would remain pinned down till nightfall, when, under cover of darkness, they and the remaining troops on board the River Clyde were able to advance without further loss. W Beach had been heavily fortified. It was ringed with barbed wire and machine guns. The 1st Lancashire Fusiliers came ashore here. As they began to leave the cutters, their ranks were ripped apart by gunfire. Some of the soldiers who'd reached the shore were mystified when their mates remained motionless in the boats. They had been shot where they sat, the pressure of their bodies keeping them upright. Their gallantry in forcing their way ashore earned the regiment 6 VCs before breakfast. The Commander-in-Chief, Sir Ian Hamilton, was so moved by their sacrifice that he named W Beach Lancashire Landing. Only a few hundred yards to the east of V Beach at S Beach, the South Wales borderers had managed to dig themselves in. this would be one of the few successes of the day. Here, the casualties had been few, this thanks to the Navy. For once, its covering fire had been effective in dealing with the defenders. X-Beach was no more than a strip of sand faced by rugged cliffs. Here, units of the 2nd Royal Fusiliers engaged the few Turkish defenders, quickly capturing the cliff top. When the Turks counterattacked, the Border Regiment, who had just landed, scaled the cliff and together with the Fusiliers drove the Turks back 600 yards with a furious bayonet charge. But the opportunity to break out and help the Lancashires, who were taking heavy casualties only a few hundred yards away, was not taken. But it was at Y Beach that some historians consider a real opportunity was missed. A force of 2,000 men were landed at this lightly guarded spot. The top was reached with little difficulty, but incredibly, neither of the commanding officers could agree who was senior and should be in command. The resulting fuss saw troops sitting on the cliff tops while the advantage slipped away.